Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello, welcome back to Soul Archaeology. We are somehow halfway through August and also somehow almost halfway through the eclipse portal. So we are in between storms. We are right at the center of it. And if you've taken my eclipse portal workshop, you know that the 2 weeks between eclipses is incredibly potent. And I do recommend going and taking that workshop if you're interested in learning about how to work with the eclipse we just had, the in-between space, and then the eclipse we have on August 27th, the lunar eclipse in Pisces. And I also wanted to mention, before we totally drop in, that I am launching a membership, which I'm very excited about. And it's set to launch in September. So I have a wait list. And if you are interested in joining this membership and getting an early bird special, you can sign up on the wait list and you will be the first to know when the doors open. You'll get the early bird special and you'll be able to lock in a lower rate than everyone else for this bridge space between 2026 and this new earth that we're creating. I'm so excited about this. This has literally been many years in the making and the time is just aligned. So I am really excited to offer this to all of you, those of you that listen weekly and want maybe just more of a touch point, more intimate space, and maybe some more personalized content, ways to practices and audios and meditations to work with this energy in real time. So I'm very excited. And this week is a bit of a potent one. You know, we had the eclipse last week. Last week was quite intense. Mars entered Cancer. We went straight into eclipse season. We had this stellium in Leo happening. And this week we have Virgo season beginning. So the sun is shifting into Virgo. It's leaving that stellium behind. And we're entering the axis of Virgo and Pisces again. And so that lunar eclipse on the 27th will activate this return to that axis. We also have some pressure aspects. So we have Mars in Cancer forming a square with Neptune retrograde in Aries on August 17th. And then on the 21st, we have Venus and Libra opposing Saturn retrograde in Aries. So both Neptune retrograde in Aries, Saturn retrograde in Aries are getting aspected by both Venus and Mars. So there's quite an interesting dynamic this week being formed. And then on the 22nd, August 22nd, the sun enters Virgo. So Virgo season begins. And being between eclipses means that we're between something. We're right in the middle of a lot of change, a lot of transformation, a lot of upheaval, uncertainty. A lot of people I'm speaking to are feeling a little swirly. They're not quite sure what it is they're feeling or what they want or what's next. And that is exactly where we're meant to be. So don't worry if that's you. We're meant to be riding this wave and moving with the current, not resisting it, not grasping or gripping. I felt this swirl in my system, and it's not overwhelming. It's not hijacking me by any means, but it's just this big wave of uncertainty, this pressure to kind of figure something out. And I've just been working with that and working to loosen my grip, surrender, knowing that this is a time of major transition. And the more we grip, the more suffering we experience, the harder it is because we're trying to control circumstances that are not ours to control. Of course, we can control the small pieces and parts of this. We can control how we take care of ourselves. We can control how we wake up in the morning. We can control the time we carve for ourselves and for self-care and for the things that really ground and nourish us, we can control what we choose in each and every moment. These bigger life pieces that are swirling, that are churning, are not ours to control. And that lunar eclipse in Pisces is going to teach us that. It's this big awakening, this big activation, this major refinement eclipse that we had on the 12th, and then we move into the full surrender. And so we're asking for something right now. We've been calling something in, maybe many things. We've been meeting our edges, and now we trust. Mars is also in Cancer, so this is a bit of an emotional time. We had, of course, that very deep Cancer season, Mercury retrograde in Cancer throughout July. We had a lot of remothering work, a lot of work around our heart walls, our own attunement to our own needs, our emotional intelligence, and the information we're taking in and processing and sitting with. And Mars entering Cancer, of course, like I said in the last episode, is bringing us back to that November, December 2024 through April 2025 timeline. And I've actually talked to a lot of people this week in sessions who said that that timeline was so intense for them. And my question to you is, are there remnants of that timeline that are coming up now in a different way? And on the 17th, August 17th, we have Mars in Cancer squaring Neptune retrograde in Aries. Mars is currently at 3 degrees of Cancer. So I'm curious where you have 3-degree, or let's say 0 to 6-degree cardinal placements. So Cancer, Capricorn, Libra, Aries. If you have anything in that sector, what are you noticing come up? Mars is also sextile Chiron in Taurus, and Chiron's at 0 degrees of Taurus. And so there's also this Chiron Pluto square happening in building, which we'll just be in for quite some time. Over the next year, we'll be navigating that square. And so there's tension here. There's also opportunity, because although Mars is in its fall in Cancer, it's technically not in its strongest, most expressed state. It is deep, and it's bringing us into deeper information around our will and our choices and our actions and where they come from. Mars in Cancer in particular operates from emotion rather than the mind. Mars in Gemini, it was very heady. We were going through a lot of different layers of the psyche. And while we had a Mercury retrograde, Mars was in Gemini as well. So there was a lot of mental stimulation. Now it's dropping deeper. And it's meeting with a Neptune retrograde in Aries. So there's so much psychic material that's available during this time. Where are we responding from? Where are we acting from? That's always the question, right? This is a tender placement for Mars. If you have this natally, you know that it can feel slow, it can feel emotional, it can even feel sort of hard to access your will and drive if you're in the shadow of it. The shadow of this transit also is passive aggressiveness, the ability to not fully move from a space of clarity and instead move from these emotionally manipulative layers, right? Operating in the Cancer shadow of protection and avoidance, even shutting down or walling off. This is an opportunity to go a little bit deeper. You might feel the remnants of that Mercury retrograde in Cancer come back around, but in a different way. There might be more charge around it. There might be deeper emotions. It might feel confusing. I had actually this wild experience. I woke up on Sunday morning and I had these crazy dreams on Saturday night, and they were just it truly felt like I was like wading through deep water, and it was murky and it was dense and it was heavy. It was this long, drawn out dream. It felt very different than any dreams I usually typically have, but it was just me going through this emotionally turbulent experience and not having any way out, and just having these big waves of emotion continue to crash over me. And it was tied to something I don't normally get in touch with or access. And I woke up just in this fog, and it felt like this emotional fog, and it just felt almost numb. And the only thing that really helped was getting out for a brisk walk in the morning and just talking it out and moving my body and moving the energy and talking to God, and it was just so helpful, but it feels like a retrograde time. We have the outer planets that are retrograde, none of the personal planets are retrograde until Venus goes retrograde this fall. But with this squaring between Mars, which already in Cancer can feel retrograde because it's in its fall, squaring Neptune, it's bringing up old material, and old material specifically through the dream space, through our intuition, through emotions, and there might just be a big wave that comes through beyond somewhere between Sunday through Wednesday and throughout this week as Mars moves through this squaring with Neptune. Like I said, we're in the eye of the storm as well, so it might be sort of slow here. That might be even quiet to some degree. I always say the time between eclipses can feel very fast or very slow, depending on where this lands in your chart and what you're personally navigating. But there might be a lot that sort of shifts on the fringes of these eclipses. The eclipses themselves, the time of the eclipse can be quite quiet. And then on the fringe, on the outside, on the outer layer of these eclipses, it can get quite turbulent and fast. But you might also be feeling very slow within this space too, especially with Mars being in Cancer. So depending on how it's affecting you, this is the time to notice. This is the time to work with the body. This is the time to move emotion through. I always say that, but move, process, and then respond. You might just need to roll around the floor, roll around on your yoga mat, or do some intuitive dance and movement the minute you get up, letting the sounds move through you. You don't have to figure everything out in this moment. And you're not meant to grip and control and contort and direct the energy right now. You're meant to just feel it and notice. And so the dream space will likely be very active this week. Like I said, it might be confusing. You might not actually know what you want. You might not know what you want to eat. You might not know what you want for the next year, 2, 5, 10 years. On these micro and macro levels, there might be confusion, and that's okay. This is an opportunity to get closer to the body, closer to the intuition, the voice that is much quieter, that speaks softer, perhaps. And we also have the Libra Aries axis activated as well. We have on the 21st, Venus in Libra opposite Saturn retrograde in Aries. And so this is bringing the axis of the self and the other into light. It's going to highlight values, relationships, what's really working, what's sustainable, the give and receive, energetic exchange, the reciprocity. What does that reciprocity look like in your life? Are you giving too much? Are you giving not enough? Are you giving in the wrong areas and not enough in the areas that you really truly want to water and nourish? Are you in a space of avoidance around your values, your relationships, your money? Depending on where this axis lands in your chart, this Aries Libra axis, there's going to be an opportunity to face the hard facts, to sober up, to look at what's really real here, what we're actually experiencing, what we actually need, how we're interacting with it, what we're choosing. A shadow aspect of Libra is avoidance. It's also codependency. So where are we avoiding our own needs, our own desires, our own wants for the other? To keep the peace, to avoid confrontation. Saturn also demands responsibility. It's saying, where are we avoiding creating the reality we truly desire? Where are we keeping the peace at the cost of truth? Saturn always demands accountability and responsibility. And I think Saturn in Aries is quite pushy with it being retrograde right now. It's definitely bringing us into layers of avoidance and where we are avoiding creating the reality we truly desire, where we are creating out of a wound or from fear rather than our actual truth. This is going to be a confronting transit. We're looking at conversations that we need to have that haven't been had. We are talking about getting real with not only others, but really ourselves first. And with Saturn being retrograde, I think that's really the focus is, are we being real with ourselves? Are we being honest with ourselves? I talked about the Saturn retrograde, I think 2 episodes ago, maybe 3, how powerful it can be to really get clear on what we are building and from where. Where are we operating from? This will ask for either a pivot in what you're choosing or a deeper commitment to what you're choosing differently, or doubling down on what you have been choosing, committing in a deeper way. And this will just be further highlighted as we move into Virgo season. So on the next day, on the 22nd, the sun enters Virgo. And Virgo is about clarity. It's about discernment. It's about truth, precision, practicality. We move from this big, sort of grandiose sun in Leo, Jupiter in Leo, Mercury in Leo, into this sobering reality check of the sun in Virgo. I always feel like Virgo season is such a reality check. It's supportive, and then it brings us into a grounded space after this big explosion of solar energy in Leo season. And here in the Northern Hemisphere, of course, it's summer, it's celebration, it's bigness, it's loud. And then we land in September. We land in Virgo season, and we get to begin to refine, get clear, get practical, prepare for autumn. Virgo is a mutable sign, so it's the middle of a season. And so it's this shift, the shift in direction, the shift in pace, the shift in focus from this full, ripe Leo season into a more practical, discerning, balanced entry into autumn. Of course, we have the autumn equinox in September as well. That's right when it shifts into Leo or Libra season. And I feel like Virgo is, my friend Kelly actually mentioned, September is the Sunday of summer. And so we're sort of entering that space. We're preparing to enter that space. What does it look like to perhaps wind down, to integrate the sun, the light, the consciousness, the solar activity that we have in the height of summer here in the Northern Hemisphere? What would it look like to refine, to get clear, to get real? This Venus-Saturn opposition is asking for us to get real. The Mars and Neptune square is making it feel like nothing's real. So this is an interesting dance. I do think by the end of the week, it might feel a little bit more sober, although we'll still be dancing with that Mars and Neptune square. And so how can you bring and incorporate reality into daily life? These small little ways, bits and pieces, you can just start to really focus on self-care. Virgo is the virgin. There's purity here. It's about the physical vessel. It's about the body. It's about health. It's about what we consume and take in on a physical level. It is the embodied healer. When we think about the axis of Virgo and Pisces, it is the axis of the healer. It's the axis of service. And Virgo is of service in very practical, real, tangible, tactile ways. It focuses on the physical plane and what we take in and how we treat our bodies, how we serve others in practical ways, and showing up with food and showing up with medicine and showing up to help you clean the house or to mow the lawn. Pisces is much more of an emotional support. It's a much more of an emotional attunement, a presence. This axis is also about control and surrender, about control and trust. And Virgo in its shadow can be very controlling. So sometimes swinging to the opposite side of the spectrum, of course, the pendulum swinging way to the opposite side after Leo season and forgetting everything you've cultivated, the ways you've wanted to express, the ways you've gotten bigger, larger, louder. I do think that this Virgo season will help us refine a little bit what we want to say, what's real, what's true for us. I think it will be helpful in this eclipse season. Of course, the South Node is in Leo as well. So that transition from the South Node of getting really real with where we're operating from, where we're creating from, where we're expressing from, Virgo will help us with that to get clear on, do I actually feel that way? Did I really want to say that? Or was I swept up in the moment? Was Jupiter Jupitering? This is getting into what needs tending, the practical, real, grounded work. Wherever Virgo lands in your chart, you're going to feel this desire to get real, to ground, to be more practical, to really tend to things maybe you've put aside in this heightened summer. it will also be grounding as we move into this next eclipse on the 27th in Pisces. It's a lunar eclipse in Pisces, so it's going to be very deep, very transcendent. Ground as much as you can. And I don't mean just, run your grounding cord. I mean, quite literally connect with the earth, sit with your back against a tree, lay on the ground. Make a list of the things you've been avoiding. Are there certain things that you can tend to, even if you don't have all of the information, even if you don't know exactly what you want to create from that space? Are there certain things you've been avoiding that actually you could move forward with? I do think Virgo season is so helpful in that way. And so this doesn't have to be perfect. That's a shadow of Virgo. Nothing has to be perfect before you move forward with it. This is an opportunity to slow down and just notice what you're consuming, what you're choosing, what you're avoiding. Like I said, it is a confusing time because of this Mars in Cancer transit squaring Neptune retrograde in between eclipse seasons. Or in between eclipses in eclipse season, you don't necessarily have to act on these things if you aren't fully sure. That's not the point, but it's noticing what you're devoted to, noticing what you're tending, noticing what you're avoiding. And can you make little, simple, small steps towards creating the reality you truly desire? That doesn't mean you have to make big decisions or sign contracts or say yes to something you aren't sure about. It's not that at all, and I wouldn't recommend that during an eclipse portal. But it's really noticing what you are choosing, what you are saying yes to. Are they actually aligned? Can you take a break? Can you pivot? Can you take inventory? Where can you simplify, edit, slow down, integrate all the change that's happened over the summer, all the information, the data, the changes that have occurred? This is a storm, and I know they're having a hurricane in Hawaii right now, and I'm sending love to all of my friends and people and listeners there. It's very, very, very Mars and Cancer. We're going to have weather events and water events and things like that happened during this eclipse season, but also during this Mars and Cancer transit that lasts through September. And it's a big time. So just be gentle with yourself. Slow down, simplify if you can. Take a beat. I know for those of you with kids, you're preparing kids to go back to school, and that's always a bit of a swirly time, but when you land on the other side, maybe there's some space to just land, to just notice what's unfolded. Maybe it's been an incredibly expansive and wonderful summer. Maybe it's been wonderful and challenging at the same time, or maybe it's been really hard for you. Whatever it is, just honor this change in season. This is a pivot point, even though it's a mutable sign. We're in the middle of eclipse season, but can you orient to the change that's occurring? It's important that as cyclical beings, as organic beings, as biological beings, we honor these systems and these seasons and these shifts that are built into the earth wisdom. Can you take a moment on the 22nd to just say, and there's something changing here. I might not know what it is, but I can feel it, and that can be enough. So, just a reminder about the membership launching. Join the wait list if you're interested in learning more and being on that early bird list. The Eclipse Portal Workshop is still available, and the card that I pulled today from the Untamed Elemental deck is the Sea Star card. And I don't know that I've pulled this one. It's so beautiful, but it's all about simplicity, which I love that we were just talking about that, of course. As the night sky descends into water, his form is redefined through the lens of ancient eyes. Granular and spiny, Sea Star is a simple, elegant, and very necessary contributor to the abyssal depths he calls home. Constructed with overlapping armored plates, he moves through his world with impenetrable support. His slow-paced oceanic rhythm matches his highly developed and profoundly sensitive nervous system. He is a keystone species, maintaining balance within his environment. In this way, Sea Star exemplifies a rarely observed truth. By simply being who you are making a deeply valuable contribution. Without hesitancy, Sea Star unseals the value of simplicity. He urges you to cease overthinking and instead trust. There are no improvements necessary before moving forward. Sea Star, who operates on the instinctual impulses he receives from his well-honed nervous system doesn't analyze what he's going to do next. He simply does it. This natural responsiveness is what keeps him alive and well. Sea Star reminds you that your pure existence qualifies you as a valuable contributor to your community and the planet. And you don't have to attempt perfection in order to earn the right to be here. When it's balanced, it's effortless. You have healthy instinct. When it's imbalanced, there's clutter, overthinking, overdoing. To bring into balance, trust your instinct. And I love this because it really, really highlights this Virgo Pisces axis and the axis of the shadow of Virgo, which is overthinking, perfectionism, and the highest expression of Pisces, which is full trust and surrender. So that was pretty spot on for what we're talking about today and the energy of now. And thank you as always for being here. Thank you for showing up each week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your own presence and contribution and participation in life as a conscious being. Thank you for sharing on social media. It helps me a lot to grow this podcast. Thank you for sharing with friends and family. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will see you next week.